Hey, what's up, friends? Grant Baldwin here, joined by my friend, Miss Neen James. We are here to laugh and bring joy to your lives in the midst of chaos. Neen, how you holding up over there?
G'day, gorgeous. Well, I'm working on my tan, got all the time in the world.
How long have you been in the speaking industry?
Oh, Lordy. I want to say probably about 16 or 17 years now, Grant. I mean, a while. Yeah.
Okay, so you've been around, you were here for, the 2007, 2008 recession. You're around during 9/11. Have you seen anything like this before?
No, I haven't. And what was interesting about 2008 is remember, like, I relocated to the US, so I had to start my company from scratch. So I had no clients when I moved here, right? And so I was basically just working for money for shoes. And one of the things that was interesting back then was how many people in our profession had to find alternatives, right? So people got jobs or did something else or reinvented themselves. When I was in Australia, we went through SARS, but SARS was just really, Australasia was affected, right? I've never seen something on a global level where we actually need the whole world to heal as opposed to just a region of the world. So I've never seen anything like it. And I do a lot of work in luxury travel. So my clients are hurting. My manufacturing clients are closing down. They have global plants. So I've never seen anything to the degree that we're experiencing this. And I don't think we've even seen the worst of it. I think we're not even at the peak of this yet. So nope, never seen anything like it.
That's one of the weird things. I was talking with a friend over the weekend. We were talking about how, like when you think back to something like Y2K and we weren't really in the speaking world at the time, but like you knew like, okay, December 31st is coming. And and you can plan for it for months and months and months. And then it was January 1st and everyone, we good? And then, it's business as usual.
Yeah, the world didn't end. Yeah, it was
now if we were to rewind 2 weeks ago, even you're like, I did not see it coming to at least this degree or this level. And like you said, like we don't know where this ends or where it's going, like where this is going to bottom out. So it's really, really tough to like think through and plan and kind of keep your head in the right space right now.
I think that's the key though, honey. I think it's keeping your head in the right space. One thing that I've noticed, I'm kind of a little bit annoyed at our industry right now. And I think that there are people who have gone into like heavy sales mode instead of service mode. And I think people have to remember right now, we're in service, not sales. I mean, my job right now is to stand in service of every client. I reached out many, many weeks ago before this even got like stupid crazy. Yeah. And it was like, what do you need? How can I serve? Here's some videos. Here's some articles. Do you want me to do a webinar with your team? Do you want me to do a Zoom call? Like, what can I do to keep the energy high? And from a head place, headspace, mindset. I mean, I'm choosing positive. I'm not deluded. I know people are losing their jobs or furloughed. I know people are not sure if they're going to be able to see their elderly parents. I know people are not sure if they're going to get healthcare. So I'm not deluded that there is some really crappy things happening right now. Right. But I'm choosing to be an incredibly positive light in the lives of the clients that I serve. And I think we have to stand in service right now. This is not the time to be pimping everything out and just like being opportunistic. It's making me crazy. Like when I start to watch social media and I'm like, just get off social media. Like people, crazy towns, making me crazy. So anyway,
I saw a really good text or a tweet the other day. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Hang on, hold that thought. As a friend of mine, it's not anybody in the speaking industry, but it's Sean West is the guy. I'm scrolling here. It was a couple days ago.
The extreme sports guy?
Nope. So he said this. There's a difference between making money from a crisis and making money during a crisis.
See? Yeah.
Life and business must go on. Don't apologize for selling. So I'm curious to that end. And we did a few of these last week, which in fact is a total side note. We had Vin Zhang on Friday. He and I talked. So half of the people we've talked to so far have been Aussies. So I don't know if there's something for that.
Well, Aussies are like super laid back. We have like the best weather in the world. We have public health. We have public education. So we have no reason to get stressed out, right? So Aussies, pretty much laid back. I mean,
pretty chill. Aussies that have relocated to the U.S. here.
Yeah.
So to that end, like to that message, the tweet though, thinking about making or making an income and from a crisis versus during a crisis, because there's two sides of it. Like you said, I want to serve people, I want to take care of people, because the unique thing right now is that everybody's hurting, everybody's feeling. Like you said, this is like when SARS happened, or when some of these other crises have happened in the past. It's kind of like it affected parts and pockets of industries or the war, or here or there. But like this is everyone globally across the place. It's affecting. So how do you think through okay, I want to continue to serve and help people. Everyone's hurting right now, but at the same time, I have to eat and live indoors. I have financial obligations and responsibilities. In your case, you have to continue buying shoes to keep the economy afloat.
Now you make me sound so shallow.
Okay, we're gonna come back to this, but I want to know how many shoes you have. Okay. We got that question in the chat. So you ponder that for a second. I think we've asked that on a previous podcast.
Oh, geez.
But how are you thinking about it right now in terms of through the lens of I want to serve people, but I also have financial responsibilities?
Yeah, and I understand that it is incredible privilege to work from home. People are posting all these, work from home and work out and all these things, which, by the way, I'm doing. And I am very clear I live an incredibly privileged life. Let me put that out there. I am very clear that I have been incredibly blessed, which is also the result of work and diversifying income and, being able to stand in service first. So please know, I get that. I totally get all of that. And I think what I guess for me, the filter is, don't be gross about it. Like if you have something that's going to help people and it doesn't cost you anything to give it away, then please give it away. If you've written ebooks that can be shared, then give them away right now, because people don't have resources to buy them. That's my take on that. And I understand it comes from a very privileged position. If you have opportunity to have advice that you can share that people would benefit from right now, and it's only costing you time and you have time on your hands, then give it away. Like that's the stance I'm taking, right? So that's from a very privileged position. I totally get that. I have the luxury of working from home. I have the luxury of being able to have food in my fridge. I have the luxury of knowing where I'm sleeping tonight. I get they are luxuries for some people right now, because not everyone has that opportunity. But I also think with that privilege, there is a responsibility that means buying gift cards of businesses that I want to stay, paying my hairdresser even though I'm not having my hair done. And my God, everyone's going to obviously realize I'm not blonde. Nice. That might be an option.
It's not bad.
But I also understand that there's ways that you can help. If you come from a place of privilege, you can tip a lot more generously. You can buy things for people in your neighborhood. You can buy gift cards. You can support the businesses who've always supported you by being able to I don't necessarily want to order takeout, but I can certainly have it delivered to people who need it, right? So I think there are responsibilities that come with that. Like I said, all from a position of privilege. If you have something that's only costing you time and you can give it away, now is a good time to do that. But I understand people still have rent to pay and bills to pay, and there are still a lot of services that we need, and there are opportunities to take advantage of that. There's a lot of my clients who are being furloughed or fired right now because they're in industries that, my major hotels, they're shutting the doors. The airlines that I work with, they're like changing their flight paths, like literally eliminating, like Emirates. Gone, right? So when you think about some of these things, I don't think there's a right answer or a prescription. I just am choosing not to make money off my expertise right now when I can give it away for free.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to talk about your speaking business. You're someone who does a lot of speaking. Your speaking is a big part of your business. But we were talking a little bit before we started recording here, and you sounds like you're in a good spot right now where a lot of gigs have been canceled, but you have some other things happening. So from the speaking side for a second here, we were talking. Can you tell us what you were telling me beforehand of when's your next gig? It's March 23rd. You historically do a lot of gigs. When's your next gig at the moment?
October.
That is.
It happens. If it happens.
Baffling to me.
Well, I mean, think about it. And I'm a corporate speaker. I'm a business speaker. And so spring and fall is my silly season. It's always my silly season. I will do multiple shows a week in the spring and the fall. That's just my business. In the summer, I have one major conference that I do, which I absolutely love in Vegas. But there's not a lot that happens. Once school breaks up for me, because I'm a corporate chick, then that's it, right? And then September, everyone goes crazy because they're back at work. And then Thanksgiving, everyone goes to their family. So I know the patterns in my calendar, historically how that used to work. And so I've always budgeted accordingly. I'm quite happy to take the summer off and create products and do those things. But because of that, many, many years ago, when I first started speaking, I was mentored, and became my business partner and a dear friend now, Matt Church. Matt Church wrote, I think, the best book on thought leadership, called Thought Leadership. And but one of the things he talks about is you have to diversify your income. You talk about this, honey, in the back of your book, in the Successful Speaker, right? Absolutely. So one of the things that I learned very early in my career is speaking might be a primary profit center, but I also had to diversify my income because I had the summer break, and I have to, Matt calls it lumpy billing, right? Speakers know this. You have like peaks and troughs. So in order for me to have consistency, I have retainer clients where, we call it brand my brain. So they literally pay for real estate in my brain. I'm thinking about them every month, connecting with them, that kind of thing. They're retainer clients. And so what I think people have to think about is, we've all talked about diversifying our income, but not everyone does it. You've been preaching about it on the podcast. You've been suggesting to people, but I feel like there's multiple things you can do with your expertise. Maybe you can do group coaching on it. Maybe you can write about it. Maybe you can create a training program for it. Maybe you could facilitate conversations about it. And so I feel like we have to diversify. And so I am fortunate that I have a diversified portfolio of clients and expertise. And so one thing that I have been good at over the years is creating women's leadership programs. So for some corporations, I sell them the design, and then I put other speakers in there, including myself, to deliver it. That's an example of taking my expertise, my network. I have some phenomenal female speaking colleagues that I can put into these programs. So they get a new client. I look like a hero to my client. And then the women in that organization get exposed to brilliant thought leaders. There's so many different things that we can do. I think that we just have to be creative. There is no normal anymore. Yeah. What we go back to, I don't think our industry will turn around for, at least 12 months.
Really?
And so, yeah. And I feel like, because here's what's going to happen. The spring is already pushing to the fall. We've already got multiple clients having multiple holds on same dates. And I'm like, whoever signs a contract, you get the date. Like, that's the deal, right? Because a hold doesn't mean anything to me in my calendar until there's an actual signed contract. And even then, a signed contract right now, as we're seeing in our industry, doesn't hold up anymore, because just because people have paid deposits doesn't mean they can't stop that payment, and you don't really have the deposit. So, like when we had a system where we would put the deposit in a separate bank account, because I think a lot of speakers, we get the money, then we spend it, and then we go, oh my gosh, then like I do a 50% hold for the date. So I feel like there's a lot of things, a lot of bad practices that our industry has had that this particular crisis has highlighted, right?
So for right now, you mentioned like a lot of spring events that were happening are now being pushed to the fall. Are you seeing that the ones that were supposed to happen in the spring, because I think there's a big, and there's a Facebook group you and I are in where I think it was Mitch Joel who mentioned, he did a good job kind of explaining, and we all understood this, on a surface level, but really differentiating between like, you can't just say all these things are canceled when really like they've been postponed, they're being rescheduled, they're still happening. They're just happening at a different date than what we had initially signed up for.
Yeah,
so is that kind of what you're seeing so far? Is a lot of what was supposed to be happening in March, April, May is now still happening, or a decent percentage of them are happening, but just later in the year?
It's 50-50. Some are canceling completely and some are postponing. And I think it's really important to distinguish between cancel and postpone. One of my luxury clients, they just canceled this year's event and said, we'll do it at the same time next year, right? And so I'm going to call that a cancellation. It's not a postponement because it happens every year. They just canceled it. Then I have other clients where we've postponed to the fall. But what's happening is, for speakers, they're going to miss their spring income, and their fall income that they would normally budget for is kind of effectively halved, right? Because all the spring has just kind of postponed to the fall. So they can't sell. In the speaking industry, if you are a full-time keynoter, you have inventory. Your only inventory are the dates that you have. Yeah. And so what this is, I think, going to affect, if those fall events happen, we don't know what's going to happen. If a hotel closes their doors today, I don't know how quickly they can reopen. If you're used to a certain flight path, it doesn't mean that plane brain is still going to go to those places in the future. And that's why I think with our industry, it's going to be 12 months before we're going to see what's really happening, because so many will just say, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses this year, and then I'm going to see what I can do next year. And so not a lot of people have budgeted for that.
Right, right. Are you finding that there are events happening, either in the fall or even into next year that are still booking speakers? Because that's one of the things I've been hearing is events aren't happening today, but events are still taking place in the future, whether they've been rescheduled or postponed, or they were just already scheduled. So there's, for example, I've mentioned a couple times here, there's a friend of mine who runs a big event in September, and he said, as of now, the event is happening, and I still need speakers, and I found it to be more competitive because so many events have been pushed to later. So are you finding that events are still, they're not happening, but they're still booking speakers for the future?
Yeah, I got booked for a November job, recently. It's an organization I've always wanted to work for. I've been so keen to get on their radar. They reached out to me before any of this happened. And and so it's still happening. And I think that people can't assume it's going to go ahead. So your friend in September is assuming the September event is going to go ahead. And I hope that that is true. That would be fantastic if that's true. But I'm not, for now, I'm just going to take it one day at a time. We have seen in our own week how the conversations we were having last Monday morning, Grant, are very different to the conversations we're having this Monday morning. Yeah. And so I feel like it's really, but in saying all that, I'm playing the long game, which comes back to my original commentary around service, not sales. Yeah. I'm playing the long game with all my clients. There's going to be a time with all of these clients, if they're still around, that they're going to still need events in the future. I want to be the person who stays top of mind, who is beside them, a partner, resourceful, kind, positive. These are the things I want to be known for. Right. Yeah. And so I think we're playing the long game, but I feel like in our industry, there's people making very short-term decisions right now, and they're not thinking about the long game. And and I understand that comes from a place of privilege. Believe me, I get that. And I think we just have to be very careful. I was thinking about a post this morning. I'm not sure if I'll do it or not. But one of the things I was thinking of was be kind or be quiet. I just want people to shut up right now. If you can't say something nice, my mom used to say, don't say something at all. If you're not going to be kind or helpful in the post that you're going to make, if you're going to post something, make sure it's valid, make sure it's got research, make sure it's actually not just some, we've got all these things being reshared with no evidence. I mean, be kind or be quiet. That's kind of what I want some of the message to be right now.
Be kind or be quiet. I like that. I think you need to run with that. You mentioned that you see a bunch of speakers right now making some short-sighted decisions. You don't have to obviously name any names, but is there anything that you're seeing that you're like, I don't know if that's the best decision right now?
I think there's speakers who are trying to sell expertise for things they are not experts in themselves. Something that our industry is famous for before any world crisis was people who couldn't do it as a particular speaker decided they would package it up, and they knew how to do it. They have no case studies, they have no evidence, but all of a sudden they're marketing machines and they're selling to speakers. And unfortunately, if someone's starting out, they don't have the benefit of, maybe they didn't before your book came out. They didn't have a step-by-step guide. And so these people prey on them. And that makes me crazy without a crisis. It's a soapbox that I've been on for many years in my association, but I'm seeing more of that right now. And so people who couldn't make it and couldn't do it and weren't thought leaders now trying to sell for that stuff makes me crazy. Yeah. And so I think it is so unkind to do that, right? Yeah. So that's what I'll say about that. Be kind or be quiet.
Yeah, I like that. And I saw my a speaker friend of mine, Phil Boyd, in the chat here. Phil is actually someone who helped me in this situation a couple of years ago. I've shared this with in a couple of different scenarios, but several years ago I had 3 engagements just back to back, flying from point A to point B to point C. And a week before the events, the middle one emailed me and contacted me and said that they were going to have to pull the plug on the event. Registration wasn't what they hoped it would be. And I mean, at that point, a week before an event, you can't, you can't sell the date, you can't rebook it. There's nothing that's going to happen at that point. And so you're just like, well, crap, what do I do at this point? And so I ended up talking with Phil, and I said, hey man, what do I do in this situation? Contractually, they owe me the money. The other thing that made it a little complicated was because I was flying from, one city to the next city to the next city. Is logistically, it didn't make any sense to fly home in between. So I was going to have to go there anyway. And so he said, how do you make this a win for that client? And how do you turn this into something that's a win for them? So he said, I would just go there and do something for free for them, And so that's what we ended up doing. I was like, I told the client, I was like, I have to fly to your city anyway. I'm going to be there. So we met up. It was in Minneapolis. We got to wander the Mall of America there. Had a good lunch. I asked them, I said, hey, find an organization locally that I can speak at. I'll just speak at it for free. Let's make you look like the hero. Yeah. They found an organization. I went and did a free talk, and it worked out really, really well. What was fun about it was, fast forward, the lady who at the time was the state director of that organization, a few years later, she became the national director. And her first year in national director, the person that she hired as the opening keynote for their national conference was me. Now, I like to think, hypothetically, hopefully, it had something to do with we built a good relationship, we built a good friendship. It would have been easy for me to, again, kick them while they're down, but to say, okay, this sucks for both of us, but how do we turn this into a win and make sure that we keep a long-term, relationship from this? So, a little shout out to Phil there from
that. Love that. It's the long game. That's the mentality I really would like to challenge our industry to have right now. Yeah. The long game, it's all, one of the things that, one of the books that I wrote, I talk about this whole idea of attention, right? Yep. And attention is about connection, right? Intentional attention, right? It's intention that makes our attention valuable, right? And so when you think about what's your intention behind what you're doing, I'm choosing to stand in service right now. That's my intention. How do I help? What can I do? What do you need? And so when we can ask people, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? If you have a skill, a opportunity to do something, this is a great time to be able to share that expertise. If financially down the track you benefit, great. That's amazing. That's fantastic. And it's okay right now if you are a speaker and you're going to get a job. It's okay if you want to, whatever you need to do for your family, absolutely do that. Right? Just do that. Like, don't worry what anyone else thinks. Don't worry what people write on social media. Just go do whatever works for you and your family. And so right now, that's really the core of everything, right? We have to stop. This is why I want to say be kind or be quiet. Stop making commentary on other people's lives without any insight into what's going on behind those closed doors, right? And so that's important.
I got two other questions for you. One was, I want to come back to the diversification where you're trying to think through like right now you feel like, okay, I'm like, this sucks, but I feel like I'm more in decent shape because of some of the other pieces that were in place prior to all of this. I think there's certainly a lot of speakers right now going like, okay, I quickly have realized I need to diversify my income streams, but you're also kind of in the thick of it right now, trying to get out of it, but at the same time diversify and think long term. So what would you say to that speaker who's going, I recognize I need to diversify, maybe should have started this process a while ago, but I'm in it right now, trying to think through how I can diversify while also recognizing, again, all my clients, everybody is feeling it and hurting right now. So how would you recommend a speaker think about it currently?
You can't organize history. So start like...
Whoa. Hang on. That was good. You can't organize history?
You can't organize history. You can't say I coulda, shoulda, woulda done that. It's happened. You can't go back and fix it.
So good. You can't organize history. Tweet that out. That was great. All right. Sorry. Carry on.
I say that all the time because we can't live in regret of what we should have done. We can't beat ourselves up because we should have diversified our income. That's all great. We can't organize history. I say it all the time. So what we can do is say, okay, in 90 days from now, what do I want that to look like? I think in 90-day cycles, because I can get my head around 90 days, you can change behavior in 90 days, you can financially live through 90 days, right? So most people. So I think about what do I want to be 90 days from now? And what do I want to be 360 days from now? So what you could be starting to think about is, what would you do that you really love? Are you a great coach? Are you a great mentor? Are you a great facilitator? Are you a great trainer? That podcast you've been always wanting to create, can you start to map it out? That book you've been meaning to write, could you start to map it out? This is a time of thinking about ideation. And so I love ideating. I've been talking about 2 particular books. I have a publisher who's been talking to me for 18 months, write the book. I had 2 calls with them last week and I committed to writing the books. Yeah. And so what I'm trying to do is use this is the long game, right? It'll take me a little while to create them and have them packaged, etc. But I think it's going to be a lot of book babies, in the next 9 to 12 months, right? But one thing that I think speakers need to think about is you have a skill, you have an expertise. You might have thought that it only belonged on the stage and that's how you made your income. But maybe there are opportunities for you to go and work and practice that skill somewhere else. Maybe there are opportunities for you to volunteer somewhere that might eventually lead to some work. But what people have to think about is, as people are being laid off, there's real concerns around how they're going to make their rent, how they're going to pay their mortgage, how are they going to put food on their table, how are they going to pay their student loans. All of these are really genuine concerns. Mm-hmm. There was some really fantastic advice. Barry Benther did a call for the National Speakers Association. He had 10 things that people could do that it might be worth somehow linking if there's an opportunity to do that. That would be really helpful. He had 10 things people could do and have access to money and loans and things I didn't even know existed. Our friend Preet in Canada is doing phenomenal Instagram videos right now for people who might find themselves in situations exactly like you're talking about. So Preet is a great person to follow.
Who is that?
Preet, P-R-E-E-T. And I'll put a link in here somehow, however we do that after we jump off. But Preet on Instagram, he is a phenomenal financial brain. He does a lot of work in Canada and around the world in giving advice, but his videos are really timely right now. I feel like we have to play the long game, but we also have to understand how we're going to pay those particular things. Right. And so that's an individual decision. People need to talk to their financial planner. They need to talk to their bank about deferring things. They need to look at what's available, federal, state, any of those things. There's small business loans being made available. There's all kinds of things. That's going to take some, research, but people need to think about that. If you want to truly diversify your income, you have to choose what you're good at. Not just because it sounds like a good idea. What are you good at? I don't have a podcast because I suck at that stuff. I'm happy to be interviewed, but the whole idea of having to line up guests, makes me want to vomit. I'd just be terrible at that, right? I love listening to my friends. I love supporting my friends. That's never going to be a product that's going to come out. And I sound like I'm 5, so nobody wants to listen to that all the time. So we have to just understand what are you good at, right? And then see other ways to make income from that and be much more creative. There are things that haven't even been invented yet that we haven't even thought about. Yeah. There are ways. No one thought we would be living on Zoom for 12 hours a day, but we are. Most of us are serving our clients through Zoom. We're doing calls like this. You're using a really cool StreamYard because Brian Fanzo suggested it. Big shout out to Brian, who we love. Yep. So I think that we just have to be a lot more creative now about the way that we do things and think about things. It's a really long answer, but we have to tap into all the resources that the government is making available, that states are making available, the relationships that you have with your financial planner, your banker, all those people, assuming you have relationships.
All right. So one other question here. You are a very optimistic, positive person, just in general on a day-to-day basis. This is one of those things where I find myself in the same spot where I'm generally a pretty optimistic, positive person, but I got to make sure that I'm not digging too deep into the news or letting my head go too far down a rabbit trail of where's this going to go. So how are you staying optimistic and positive right now?
So
and just keeping your head in the right space.
Yeah, I was walking with a girlfriend, and yes, we walk every day, and we've been in this ever since this all started. So we figure if we were infected, we would both be infected. So we're still walking every day. But she asked me the same question the other day. She said, "Do you have this deep well of Neen James-ism somewhere that's what are you doing every day that makes you show up this way?" And a couple of things that I realized when this first started, I was scrolling through Facebook like a lunatic, and I don't particularly spend a lot of time on Facebook. I was reading Instagram every other minute. I was watching the news. I don't even have the news on in my house. And I realized it was just taking me down these really ugly paths. So I did a social media detox, which I do quite frequently, where I just don't go online. Mm-hmm. But I have a really strong faith, so I still believe in prayer and meditation. And so for me, and that, whatever that looks like to people, right? Whatever your spirituality is, I certainly am meditating longer than I have been before. I'm also choosing to be a positive thought from the moment I wake up. What am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for right now? Who haven't I spoken to in the longest time? And so all the posts that I've been making, I'm choosing to be positive. Does that mean I get sad? Yes. But I get sad privately, not publicly. When I talked to Lily, we went for a walk. That's my friend that I walk with. I just like burst into tears. I was like, this is a lot. And she said, well, it's interesting because you're like the motivational speaker. So people are looking to you to inspire them and motivate them. I was like, I'm just sad. I'm sad that my parents are not listening to me. They're in Australia. They are now. But they weren't listening to me. They're like, oh, it'll be fine. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying to beg my parents not to go out in public and who they fit the demographic. I had to tell my parents they were actually elderly. I'm like, do you understand you're elderly, right? So stuff makes me sad, but I just don't grieve in public. And I think that the social media is not therapy. It is not like, the world is not your therapist. Go talk to someone, have a friend. But I'm choosing very much to tap into my more spiritual practices, my great friends. And if I'm going to be sad, it's in private or with a friend. It's not public.
Very well said. Be kind or be quiet. We're looking for that post to come out today. Is that going to be out today?
Sure, it is now. I wasn't going to, but
good.
It is now.
Hey, we had a bunch of comments of people asking for that post, so we want to see that. Make sure that you drop that later today. This is also an opportunity. You told me earlier you have nothing but time, and so it is public accountability.
Public accountability drives private accountability.
This is
That's
true.
a good time. Actually, you could leverage this time. If you've been meaning to do something, that's how my silly book happened, because I wrote that it was going to be one of the things that I would do. So the publisher reached out and they were like, Neen, we've been talking about this book forever. So it was smart of them to jump on that, right? Yeah.
We all have nothing but time right now.
But that's not true, okay? Understand, I said that I'm privileged. I'm in a beautiful place with lovely weather. I have no homeschooling to do. Let's be really clear. All these posts about meditate longer, they work for some people, but I have girlfriends who are raising 3 children, homeschooling them, running 2 businesses, keeping their parents sort of sane and safe, trying not to fight with their partner, living in a small space. So can we just be really, really clear? Not everyone has the luxury of working remote or meditating longer because their days are filled with stuff that I don't understand because it's not my reality. So let's be super careful when we're giving advice. It may work for you and a small group of people, but it doesn't work for everybody. Someone is still bagging groceries and still working reception at the hospital and still delivering Amazon packages. And let's be really, really kind to anyone who is still very much on the front lines right now.
Very well said. Neen, if people want to find out more about you and what you're up to, where can we go?
You can see where I play on Instagram probably the most, but there's only one Neen James, thank goodness. So if you just Google me, you'll find me.
Neen James. Neen, always good to chat with you. We appreciate your hope and encouragement and optimism in this weird world that we're in right now.
It is. Thank you for everything you're doing in the world, my friend. Love you lots. The world is so much better because you're in it.
I appreciate the kind words. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, babe.